and like their old cities still work, or the old, what remains of old world downtown cities in each of these ancient cities, such as Moscow, or across Eastern Europe, with the star forts as well as the canals. It's that you can see. It's also in like Shanghai, China from the 1500s and back, throughout Germany, throughout Russia, and that the canals actually still go through. Like for instance, in Russia, yeah. So here's one in Portugal, one of the star forts, the huge amount of terraforming around it. And amazingly, this one is still in pretty much pristine condition, compared to the destruction of most of the ones you find today, or some of the rebuilt kind of facaded but more destroyed average star fort. But this one, you can see the main four spire star fort design, and then one of these fractal geometric crowns, I guess, going to the west or to the left there of it. And that this Great Wall of Tartaria that we're going to show you, it's actually one of these, but not potentially, who knows, maybe back when they were built in their prime, each one of those star forts could have been one of these. Archaeologists really got to start digging around with the LiDAR and stuff to see, and often they do have vast underground complexes and chambers and caves and buildings, foundations that you find in these star forts. Even like, for instance, the Statue of Liberty is built on the base of one of these. And there's so many with the canals, the earthworks, the artificial islands of this culture, this technology, and this building. It's just insane, the terraforming around it. And then when we show you this Great Wall of Tartaria, it incorporates both, you'll see the canal network going up the Dnieper River. It starts, I believe, either in the Sea of Azov or to the left of it, the Kherson region of Ukraine, where I'm talking about, where this Great Wall of Tartaria, we've dubbed it, and it runs across all of, up from the Black Sea there, through the heart, up the Dnieper River, and then it splits off east across all of northeastern Ukraine, and we'll show you the plotted course of it, and go along a bit of it that me and Campbell had gone through and on Google Earth and found. And it's literally every kilometer across this, like thousands of kilometers of there's Campbell, of this Great Wall of Tartaria, that there's one of these buried star forts, the exact same four-petaled basic imprints of these star forts. And then there's the vast, like each of the, whether it's Berlin, whether it's Moscow, whether it's New York, whether it's Shanghai, whether it's pretty much any city, Havana, wherever, Brazil, like every single city metropolitan that existed 500 years ago, 400 years ago, that there's a map of, it's built in this canal star fort, Star City citadel style and layout.
That's what I'm talking about. Campbell, we have another star with us. So now we've created the Star Empire. And looking forward to hearing this information. I'm really actually, I know very little about these star forts and Tartaria. Some of the information that I have found out outside of you guys, I'm very skeptical about. So I know so little that I'm just going to give you guys an open platform here. And if I have questions, I'll jump in, but I appreciate you very much being guests on the Leak Project Network. And I know you have a lot to share. Are you? I mean, what's been going on? It's been too long.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, I just came back from Melbourne. Oh, Melbourne's just crazy. Melbourne, Australia. It was actually founded by Mr. Batman, and it's literally like Gotham City. It's like full of these amazing old buildings everywhere, and so that was cool. We actually did a live event there, so that was good fun. Yeah, and I've just been working, lots of editing.
Right on.
and
Right on. So who's
and
the
of course,
Joker?
sorry,
Who's the Joker?
who's the Joker? Oh yeah, well, I think it's
You brought up the
Dan
Batman.
Andrews.
Okay.
Dan
It was
Andrews,
all of
the
us.
premier, the communist premier who locked everyone down. That's got to be the Joker, right?
No.
Hello.
Yeah. He's competing with Justin, or no, Trust in Judo. Sorry, my country.
True joke.
Right on, man. Well, I didn't mean to throw a wrench out there. Yeah, really looking forward to this. So
just a pretext of like Tartaria and essentially like this reset sort of idea. The maps we're going to be showing from a few hundred years ago, that a lot of the facades that you see on these brick buildings, on these old world buildings, on these Greek or these Orthodox or any sacred, any ones throughout history, like the cathedrals, the castles, all of them, that it's actually what the facade was them rebranding, redating, resetting the story and the build date, and that it was reclaimed, it was refound land, it was rebuilt. A lot of the pictures you don't ever see the basements. You now see, like across India, across all of the world, another term, mud flood, is that there's these layers, archaeological layers, that somehow happened in their claimed build dates of 100 to 200 years, supposedly, that they're built, yet now they're digging out 2 layers deeper that there's not on the official blueprints, that nobody knew about, these fully fortified, like huge buildings with windows and everything in these new layers, and they're like, oh my gosh, it was so much bigger. And it's like, where did it come from? And okay, what is this facade now? And these robber barons that supposedly came to the new world, and was there actually an old world that had some sort of like free electricity, or understanding of like DC electricity or hydroelectricity, so that sort of stuff, atmospheric electricity, and like the steam engines and all of that. And maybe it's not as far-fetched that we were a lot more advanced in the wizards, the magic, as well as like the holy experience and stuff, was actually just technologies that we know today as and called technology.
Yes, so there you go. But this is the thing, I mean, and just in Melbourne, we were walking around, and literally you see one building and it's designated as a church or a cathedral, and then the building next to it has got all the same features, all the cathedral windows, everything, and it's a bank. And then like next to that, there's something, the same feet, it's the same building, but it might be something else. So it's like they redesignate all these buildings. So we say that they weren't founded, they were found. So I've got some pics I can share my screen. Are we live? Are we on YouTube?
We are live on the website right now, leakproject.com, where the shows are always live. And when they're live, they're free, unedited, uncensored. The guests can ask questions in the chat. And so, folks,
Awesome.
You want to join us here every Friday at 8 p.m. Mountain Time for Burneye, the Mad Alchemist, and Campbell. Now, Campbell, how was it? Autodidactic?
Autodidactic. That's how you say it with an Australian accent, but
Autodidactic. That's not a knife. That was terrible. I'm so sorry. I'm going to edit that out, folks. Okay. I'm hitting the mute button right now, brother.
Autodidactic. Whoops. Okay. Sorry. I was just watching the stream.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just getting the link. Okay. I'm ready here. Yeah. Autodidactic, which means to be self-educated. And of course, we need to be self-educated, because if we're not, the only choice we have left is to believe what other people tell us. And we can see what's going on at the moment, right? So I'm just going to share your link in my Telegram group. Excuse me. And then I'm going to share the screen. All right. So let's see. Now, I actually, you wouldn't believe it, but I lost my hard drive, decided to commit suicide. So hang on, am I sharing my screen? That's not right.
Yeah, that was the screen of all the slides.
That was where is it? Picture, okay. There. Okay, so this is obviously our cathedral. So this is what we look at a lot with, this is what we call Antiquitech, because all these features, we see them just everywhere, all these, spires and bits and pieces. And, we started wondering, what is it all? And when you look at the makeup of it, this is all, they're basically antennas to pull in etheric energy. And you can see it, the domes are also, how do I move this? Also in there, but we see this stuff everywhere. And this is like a house, what we're told is a house, but you can see we've got these same features, these same spires on the high bits, lots of iron. And when we see a lot of this stuff that's been, demolished and the columns and things, they're all full of rebar and iron and all this iron strapping. And then we get these photos, 1904, St. Louis, Missouri, World's Fair. So this is a later one, but we've got pictures of these types of things from the 1880s, like literally a couple of years after electricity and the light bulb and everything was supposed to be invented. We get these pictures of just lit up, cities with the World's Fairs. But there's no explanation as to who put the electricity and where all the wiring came from, how all these things, like everything we look into, there's no story of how they were built. It's literally, this guy built it and they give you one name. And then if you look into, where was the rock quarried, where did the glass come from, where did the metal come from? There's no evidence for anything. It's really bizarre. But I mean, look at the intricacy of this spire, right? You can see some wires hanging off there. So we're told this is all, for the glory of God. And I mean, look at the size of this place too. You can see the people down here, doorways up here. And so, what is God, right? What is the glory of God? What are they talking about here? This is an old world city, a picture from, I believe it's in America, like one of the World's Fairs. But we see these everywhere. These, I don't know what they are. What are these, Burneye? Some kind of grid antenna, but they're wireless.
Waveguide antenna. Sorry, yeah, I will hold myself for the questions and not interrupt you, especially from you in Australia, me in Canada, and Rex in Colorado. They're recording that. I don't want to screw it up and talk over each other. So yeah, it's fractal waveguide antennas, and they're for harnessing and transferring atmospheric electricity, and it's the electrical potential differential between the tops of the spires, and then, as Campbell mentioned, the domes, and then they have these iron connecting rods, and they try to claim that rebar is a recent invention, but you go into these cathedrals that are thousands of years old, and they're connected from these metal domes down through the red bricks. And it's that also lately they've come out and stated that these bricks can be used as batteries through these superconducting materials and the dipole differential between it. And now I will shut up and let you go back to it.
Yes. And so you can see like just all the buildings, and this would probably be designated a government building, but same thing, right? Domes all over them, spires, these what are called sort of belfry bits up there. But the other thing is they're all in horse and cart, right? And they're surrounded by these amazing buildings and this architecture that, we can't replicate this today. And it looks like, free energy too, right? Or at least remnants of some kind of free energy, system, but we just see it everywhere. Another dome here, and we see this a lot, this antenna, and see how it looks kind of cross-like. So they'll leave that and say, oh, it's Christian, it's Catholic, but they're not. They're just antennas. And then, sometimes we see the half moons, and they say, oh, that we'll designate that as Arabic or Islamic. But then you go into a country that's not Islamic, and you see the same thing. But it's just the intricacy and the detail they put into everything. And the thing is, I mean, look at the information that's encoded. Just looking at this, you could sit here and stare at this for hours. But what they build today, these square, black boxes, there's no information encoded in them. Like there's nothing there. But the old world were building things like this.
Put over top of the once functioning technology, right?
Yeah.
Functionality of like disconnecting a wire here, taking off the wrapping there. Like we all hear the stories that the pyramids, when they were found, were covered with different layers of both minerals as well as golds and metals and stuff like that. How many other places were, and was it actually for technology purposes with the it's the dipole as well as the word will come back to me, but between the rock, like the basalt, the granite, and then the sandstone, and then the metals, and that it functions as this macro-sized battery power generator harvester.
And here you see this is an old, these are what we're told are, thousands of years old. Obviously, it's been, reconstructed. You can see all the cracks in these pillars. And what do we have here? But we have rebar coming out of the top of this pillar. We see this stuff everywhere. And, there's big questions over a lot of these sites. Because, I mean, look at this. This has clearly been rebuilt. And so we don't know if this is the way it was, that they've redone Stonehenge. Here's another one. This is an obelisk, or was, and you can see it's just full of metal. You can see that's the antenna, and it's directly connected through metal all the way down into the ground. So this is, what we sort of think they're all solid stone, right? But are they?
That looks like a modern day, like a 5G telephone, or like, your satellite antenna, and this is what was inside those obelisks. And like at the very top, the bulbs on each of those ends, like, was that mercury, was those other metals? Like, what is that? That's technology, that's antiquitech. And underneath this geopolymer, we were lied to saying that like most of it is all stone, but a shout out to a fellow researcher, Paul Cook, that will be on with us again here soon, and the extensive work he does over there digging into the geopolymer facades that are on top of everything.
Indeed, yeah. So everything, and that sort of first came out with the pyramids too. How they build the pyramids, and I think it was David DeVitos, I think, is that how you say it? Came out and said they're geopolymer, and now we're looking around, and it looks like everything's geopolymer. We see the walls with, you can't fit a human hair between the bricks. It's because they were laid wet, is what we're finding out. They were literally poured in bags as geopolymer. And then we get things like this, right? We get this, you can see, we've got this city built up, but they're doing excavation work, and this happens all the time, right? They go to build a new building, they start digging down, and you can see these would have been popping out of the ground, but clearly goes down. There's even looks like a doorway down here. There's another one sticking up here, and it's got a whole building underneath it too. So this is what has been termed the mud flood. You can see how much that is. It's as high as that at least. A lot of buildings seem to be half underground. That there's been, a catastrophe that we haven't been told about. And, catastrophism used to be taught. It used to be common knowledge that there were regular catastrophes. But that information has been held back from us for the last sort of century or so about these regular catastrophes. But, the evidence is everywhere. And I mean, look at this. This is just a church, right? They're just all the same features. And this, of course, we see heaps. These doorways, and they're so big that they literally go and they cut a smaller doorway in for the, because that why so big? And you get this in Australia, which is a brand new, colony pretty much. When everything was built, everything was supposed to be built 1860s to 1880s. When Australia was less than 100 years old, and they build things like this in Australia, 3 times as big as they need to be, which requires 3 times the materials, 3 times the workers, 3 times everything, which doesn't make sense. But I mean, just look at the intricacy they go to for these chapels, right? And these, when you look into it, these are all electrical components. And then, of course, we have these
array of it, right? And that, imagine that there's probably, they were coated in gold or silver or at least copper, the actual conductors that, maybe when like an electrical, like a thunderstorm rolls in or something, maybe the whole building probably powered up, sort of
exactly.
thing.
Yeah. And of course we have these cymatic, shapes and windows, the rose windows, the stained glass, they're all cymatic shapes. And the shapes and the motifs and they're just repeated on all these buildings, from Australia to America to Europe. It's all the same, which is what, is telling us that this was, a worldwide previous civilization. They just kind of say, oh no, it was built like that because it was a revival style or, something, like this, but was it really? And here we go, right? This is the US Capitol.
Campbell, I'm glad you brought that part up. I had just written notes on it. It's the cymatics, and lots of it's like the octaves, the actual octave scale of the cymatic frequency that are in those glass windows, and that the organs play that exact same sound tone, that then that fractal geometry is actually a two-dimensional waveguide antenna of the structure of that same shape of the, we've seen a lot of the hydrogen atom repeated in it, as well as the solfeggio frequencies and the Schumann frequency, and then the octaves out of the sound and in the actual organ harmonics itself.
Messy desk. Yeah, so here we go. Piano notes. And as you can see, these are all cymatic. A sharp, B, C, and they're all these cymatic shapes. Now you get these, obviously they look like, things like snowflakes. Excuse me. But we also see these in the work of Dr. Emoto, where he freezes water, and through intention, he either speaks to the water or sticks notes on it saying, I love you or I hate you. And when he says, I love you, he gets these perfect, geometric patterns. When he says, I hate you, it's just this goop. And so these are also like, the windows, right, on the cathedrals. So these are cathedral windows, this line here. These are, rose windows, or they're all in cathedrals. And these are cymatic patterns, which are created through frequency. So either harmonics or intention. And they're exactly the same, right? Down here we have, it says these are DNA, this is our DNA. So these are fractals or cymatic patterns of our DNA.
Yeah, so it's the resonant shape of it within the water liquid that it's being caught or imaged in. So it's these sound frequencies, and then the resonant frequency is the vibration rate of the mass of the molecules of atoms that make up like yourself, or just a single particle, or anything and everything in between. And that they all have this, and that it takes physical form in this two-dimensional liquid. And what are our bodies but 80% water, exactly this.
So this is what he gets. This is Dr. Masaru Emoto's work. So when he got glass and he stuck, and he literally just had to stick the words on it for a week, then he freezes it and photographs it. And this is you full, just, no shape, no geometric pattern or anything. And this is thank you. And that, of course, also, apart from looking, pretty much like a snowflake, it's looks like a star fort, which we'll show a few photos of in a minute. But this is what we get when it's good intention. We get these perfect, geometrical shapes. And when it's bad intention, we get this goop, right? So this is like a polluted river and this is like a clean river. And so if we tie this back to the cathedrals that have got these windows, right, and they're connected to the ether with all these spires, and then what else do we have in cathedrals but these things called organs, right? And we have these things called organs in our body. And we just saw the DNA, somatic is the same as some frequencies in these windows. So what this is all looking like is these are healing factories, or not even healing, wellness, I guess, just to keep people well. They were pumping out frequencies into the greater communities, but also you could go in there because in all these places we have domes, and under the domes there's always these cymatic patterns and like this place you can stand where the sound's focused. Here you go, this is all music, Mozart, Imagine, and this is I Will Kill You, right? Peace, thank you. So this is water from a polluted river, and this is the same water after someone's offered a prayer to it. And so this is what Burneye was saying, we're 70% water. So literally every molecule of water in your body is making one of these shapes. So the question is, what shape are you making? Because the way you do that is with intention, right? And with sound, which is what we speak. So what we think and what we speak literally changes us. It literally changes the makeup, the frequency of who and what we are. And there's just some more these are tones played through water, so different musical tones. And again, we're seeing the same thing everywhere. And of course, this is not the best picture. I mean, look at the information encoded just in this, in this photo.
Hey,
right?
Campbell, let me,
ridiculous.
Sorry to interrupt real quick. I just want to make sure that the audio stuff is going to be taken care of on Burneye's end. Burneye, a moment ago, you had some weird, it sounded like a bloated toad in the background. Can you please talk for a minute to make sure that's gone? I'm gonna Campbell go back and this is very interesting information. So, okay, so just talk for like 10 seconds and let's see if it's back to normal here.
Am I a normal human again?
You're normal, and I do not hear that
no
toad sound in the background. So I don't know if you were doing some alchemy experiment with the toad and plugging it into mercury or something to see if you could get some type of monatomic trip, but we're better now. And thanks, Campbell. Sorry about that.
I thought you were going to grab a ukulele and start singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, Burneye. No, what is it? Why
did you hear it? Did you hear it too?
Yeah. It was Kermit the Frog.
It was bad. All right.
Dear.
What are we
looking better at now?
It is. We're better now.
Well, again, I'll mute out.
Well, you go.
Bernie's got it. We're good to go.
Burneye, you're on mute now, buddy. These are cymatic windows in a cathedral, right? So again, I mean, it's a bit of a small picture, but you can see it's the same stuff, right? So these are all, it's all, and we're being told, all the time, everything is energy, everything is frequency, right? So this is, this is looking at sound. Literally, we're looking at sound. This is the shapes that make it up. So I'll just get rid of that, and we'll have a bit of a look at some star forts, which are all, everywhere across the world. Again, we get these same features. So this is a star fort. And so this is, it's actually like, they call them star forts. They're, clearly not built for war, but they try and tell us they were. But this is like a citadel part. So this is just a smaller part of a much bigger structure. Because what we've now found out is every city basically was a star city. It had these stars around them, but they were all walled, and you can kind of see a bit of the old wall there, but also cymatic shapes, right? And look at this, these are the moats, we're told, right? Because we're all taught that castles and, were these square buildings with a moat. But when we can see them from above, there's these intricate, cymatic patterns, and clearly you can see why we call them star forts, because they look like stars. And these are literally everywhere, and it's the same thing. These are in, the US, South America, Africa, Europe, and even Australia. But we're told they were all built between the mid 1500s and the 1700s. But Australia wasn't found until 1788, which causes a bit of a problem. This is in the Netherlands, and as you can see, this is 5-pointed, and in the middle we have a pentagon, and then on the outside you'll see there'll be 5 detached 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bits. Then it sort of explodes out, but they're all based on geometry as well. There's another 5-pointer. And these things are literally everywhere. And this one is a bit more intricate, but just to show you the size of how big they are, like this is a big 2-story building.
And this is actually a close-up, a different angle of the Star Fort picture in Portugal that is the cover photo of the stream itself.
Yes, yeah, that will be coming up. But yeah, so you can see that these were, this was almost a city in itself. That's like a castle. This is a 2-story building down here. These are all 2-story buildings. So this thing, you can imagine the amount of rock and material that went into this, without even talking about the effort and transporting it there, because they're all built on, on hills, right? Here's another one built on a hill. So you got to get all the stuff up there. The story, the truth is that the hill is probably, the rest of the staff being covered up. But, again, we look into these stories and they just don't make sense. That they kind of say, oh, well, they were having a war, so they just built this fort in 6 months. The soldiers just whacked it up. This is Fort McHenry. This is in the US.
And all of these at a time that supposedly there was no electricity, no power tools, no nothing, right? So it's like, how? And like the moats, the water, the canals that connect it all, and that we'll show you some maps here before it's all done of the old world cities of them, and then the canals that connect through. It's across the entire continents, and the amount of terraforming, and then it makes you take a relook at like even North America and the Great Lake canals and all of that, and over through Eastern Canada and stuff, all of that. But that's a story for another day. I will let Campbell continue into it.
Yes. So in this one, I think this is in the Netherlands, but in all of them, you'll see this is a cathedral. They've all got these cathedrals sort of in the middle of these star cities. It's all connected. It's all one system. And of course, there's water everywhere. And what we're discovering now, again, Paul Cook's done some good research on this, is all these cathedrals seem to have these big cisterns under them, big water holding tanks. And so it's almost like, they were the charging sort of stations that were charging the water, right, with all these good frequencies. And then that was going out into the fountains, right, because the old world was full of these fountains. And then we get these funny stories. Again, I was in Melbourne, and the story is that it was built like it was fully, like there's a picture, and it was fully built out in 1884. And then the story is, but they had no plumbing until 1889. So they want us to believe that they built the city and then they went back and what?
Everywhere, but no public, no toilets in your house.
There's like, fountains everywhere. But yeah, how do you retrofit a plumbing system or a sewage system, right, under a city? And if you're that advanced to build a city that fast and that big, I'm pretty sure you'd think about sewage. So we just get all these silly stories. Here's another one. This one, I can't remember. I think it's in Europe somewhere, this one.
That might be in Asia too. That one might have been in Asia. There's lots throughout, like
there is a lot in Asia, yeah.
China, Korea even.
Yep. And they're all these different, they all sort of seem to be designed for the space, for where they are. They're all slightly different. So,
and look at the river there. Look at the canal city that it builds in. And it's like, we'll show you these maps that are like 500 years and older, that it's like they've already built that canal. That river has already been built. And then you go in and you look, it's all megalithic brickwork, this ancient, like huge stuff that there's no accounting for, but clearly it was made by some sort of civilization at one point, but not who they're claiming did it.
Exactly. I mean, that's another thing we've noticed is, you know, if you've got a river in your city or town, go and have a look at it and check out the shorelines. And you'll find, you know, a lot of these shorelines are man-made. And you know they're a man-made canal because so many of them have like equidistant banks, right? For they're dead straight.
And not just that, though. I've started noticing lots of them, and especially through the Great Lakes area in North America. And I started noticing these Tesla valves built into it. And it's like, suppose the Tesla valve is like a valve system of hydraulic pressure that Nikola Tesla invented that like actually steadies the flow rate and like prevents currents, erosions, gives you the straight everything and keeps it perfect. And it's like this was already pre-built in before and created before Tesla even existed. And then you start seeing these repeated over and over and over and over and over again in all of these old world star cities.
Yeah, it's just mad. And I mean, the way we got onto this is we just, you know, you look at the story they give us, and then we go out and we actually look at what's out there at the actual, sorry, I'm just playing with my screen again. At the actual what we've got in the physical world, and it just doesn't make sense. The stories do not match up. And this is a top view of that one that we were looking at before, where Burneye said it was the thumbnail.
In
so
Portugal,
this is in Portugal, yeah. And I mean, look at the edges here. And these are, I mean, we saw how big these buildings were. These are huge. And look, they just these perfectly straight, you know, angled geometric legs. I don't know what they are.
So Campbell, I gotta pause you on one part of that. So what me and Rex were talking about prior to you joining us is that we took the same picture from the Ferram Foundation research, and it's that he actually took this one right here and did his geoglyphs to it and got that same geoglyph map out of this particular one. So now it's the potential that each one of these could be the same geoglyph network, and as every Citadel's earthworks now, the map to everywhere else in the world. And boom, does that rewrite all history? Like, whew.
Yeah. Bernie's excited. So what he was saying is each one of these points coming off, if you extend them out over the, you know, the world, they'll match, they link up with other, you know, either stars or old world sites, or, you know, so there's this map, there's this grid, you know, and that's what's being hidden as well. And you know, we theorize that it was tied to free electricity, you know, free energy. And that's of course what they've taken, right? They've stolen the power, you know, and then now they get us to go and vote, you know, to keep them in power. You know, it's crazy, right? And we're just everywhere. Like this is just in the middle of some town, and they, you know, it's been turned into a sports field or something, and you see this stuff everywhere. Oh, sorry, Burneye, I thought you were going to speak.
Oh, so I was just going to say a little pretense of like how you're saying the power, and that that ties back into another awesome researcher that Rex you've had on before as well, that me and Campbell have done lots of work with, and we're going to do a couple more coming up with Michelle Gibson and her circuit board Earth, and we're going to try to have her, Paul Cook, and the two of us together again for putting together these power systems. And now it's like a battery. The Starfort is also known as a battery. I can't even get into it. She does such a great job, and you've got it a lot more.
Yeah, and that's a good point. You know, they've taken all these over, and they could tell us that they're forts, right? They're all built for war, and of course they call them batteries. You know, when you've got your troops, you charge, right? Charge. You know, there's all these electrical terms. You know, there's many more that I can't think of now, but all these words as well seem to be tied in, even voting, right? But, you go between the polls, right? The polling booths, between Boaz and Joachim and put them into power and all this weird stuff. So there's so much, like spell casting going on as well. They've really, what they've done is changed our perspective, so we can't see what's really there. That's how they, hidden in plain sight kind of stuff. This is Amsterdam. So this is one of the old maps Burneye was talking about. I'm not sure of the date on this. It'll probably be somewhere, but 1600s, most of these are. And you can see, apart from the fact that this is a completely built out and clearly designed, city and walled, right? They're all walled. This has canals everywhere. See, these are canals. You can see the water here, and these clearly man-made canals that go everywhere. And the amount of bridges in these cities was ridiculous. Here's the main canal. They always have like a main sort of grand canal, all man-made. And then for some reason, they always seem to have an island, some kind of island in them.
Kind of looks like an industrial trade area within the city sort of thing, but kind of like how you see rail yards, but it's more like, what's that Italian city where they're the shaking hand there? Venice, right? It's Venice, like every city was Venice, essentially.
Yeah.
What it was in this realm and world. Only a few hundred years ago, every single city, as we'll show you, because you can literally Google any city of the old world from the 1600s and back, and it will come up in these star fort shapes, and every single one is like Venice, and there's canals everywhere. Those were the highways of the time, but they were also so much more, with all of like this hidden technology, infrastructure, and buried history.
Indeed, yeah. And you can see this one, again, always got these big cathedrals in the cities, but here's one of the stars, right, or batteries attached into the wall. And there's even another one of these more sort of irregular shaped ones out here, but they always have these stars attached, to these star cities. And again, the canals, and, you can see this is a big island kind of thing as well. But the thing is with water's free energy. You float a boat, you use the current, right? The current.
You have the wind, not a windmill, but the water wheels. What are water wheels? Water wheels are harvesting electrical, like power. Not necessarily, it could be electricity just as much as it was the physical power and mechanical power that they used out of it. What's to say that, windmills and water wheels weren't actually generating hydroelectric and wind power a few 500 years ago?
Indeed. I mean, yeah. And this
or
is
further back, if the big reset happened before, and then, just the leftover remnants after some sort of giant catastrophe or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what we see everywhere. This is a drawing. This is New York City, right? Battery Park is because this is what was there, a battery. And also in New York, I think of another picture, Wall Street is literally where the wall of the walled city was in New Amsterdam. This is Hamburg. And again, you can see these cathedrals, and look how massive they are compared to everything else. And these canals, the water, walled city. And can we see the star in this one? No, sometimes they're in the wall, sometimes they're different, but it's obviously, they're all set up to harvest something. I just
had this like epiphany that, like, if this isn't the biggest evidence that pre-Columbus, because this is all essentially the time right before, right after Columbus, but this infrastructure would have had to already have existed for like hundreds of years prior to Columbus, at least, and the maps do show it, that all of the infrastructure and like all those ships, those are all seafaring ships you see docked in each one of these cities. And they're trying to tell us at that time there was no global travel, no like human global civilization, yet it seems it's all seafaring, all water travel, all like, it just backwards.
And all geometrically perfect. Excuse me. Perfect. And the thing, we kind of discovered these, right? Because now we can see them from above, a bit like the Nazca lines. So how are they doing this? With the level of technology, how are they even designing and laying these out? Because these are cities. We're not talking something small. This is what we're looking at here. This is a city. This is, Palmyra. Is that right? Palmyra. I can't remember, can't pronounce it properly, but this is a massive city, right? And we're told that they were just built by these sort of band of people, just in a 200-year period. But then again, the problem, like Burneye says, is you go to the US and especially Canada. Canada's full of them. There's star forts everywhere. So how? Because the story is literally, they say they were all built by the French or Italians between early 1500s and 1750. And this isn't, every single city that you get a map of, they're all like this, all slightly different, but all clearly the same, components and designs. This is New York. So this is actually an overlay. Someone's overlaid a modern map and put an old map on. So you can see that's the Battery in Battery Park. And see this wall? That's the wall from the old world city. That's Wall Street. Wall Street. It's called that because it was literally the street with the wall on it. And this is all stuff that we're just not taught about.
Wall. Sorry, Kim. Well, before it's all done, we're going to show you the Great Wall of Tartary. That is that exact same wall shape. You're going to see, we're going to show you that exact same wall go all across Ukraine and all across Siberia, larger, 3 times, 4 times larger than the Great Wall of China. The exact same as you saw Wall Street's foundation is and was.
Yeah. Another thing you'll notice is all these buildings, apart from the roads being very, irregular, they're all red brick. Everything's red brick in the old world. It's all red. It's bizarre. I mean, they were all bluestone. They did use bluestone and a bit of sandstone.
It's not bizarre if you take in the context that red bricks could have been used as batteries.
As batteries.
This new understanding of it that could be this ancient technology, and batteries built of bricks that are batteries that are called batteries that could be battering everything. Of makes sense that it's all red brick.
Yeah. And this is what these cities look like. So we're not talking, small little towns. We're talking massive structures, completely built out, domes everywhere, the cathedrals, all these old world buildings we see everywhere. This is what was making up these old world cities. And they were all built in these massive foundations and stars, but with, hammer and a chisel and a horse and cart.
Right.
I mean, we could not do this today.
Logically, thinking from a Star Trek Vulcan, the logic, there is zero logic on why people with horse and buggy that were supposedly in civil wars, no power, starving, plagues, all at this time, would then spend the time to dig out and build these extra little shaped petaled islands, these triangles, these extra layers of watered moats. It's
for what?
Doesn't make sense. It's just so illogical. It's beyond stupid. They would have all died and there would have been nothing left if people were that stupid. There's much more to it.
Yeah. And you see this all the time, right? Look at this, the size of this city, completely built out in the shape on a star foundation. And we come down here and they've built this little wooden entrance, right? So, and we see this everywhere. You see these photos and these old world buildings with these little wooden shacks next to them.
Right. And Campbell, I got to pause you right there. That is such an excellent part. And that if you go exactly just down, but closer to the river, right in front of that wood, there's those 4 or 5 wooden shacks right there. And it's the only part of the bank that is green and muddy that has been eroded away. The rest is this terraced stone that was already there. And then you're seeing these metal roofed stone buildings and everything. So it's that these people almost at this time, they were building, repairing, recovering with wood and recovering on something that they inherited and have come across after this reset, after whatever cataclysm or whatever happened, that, you know, it's like, it's just, they were not the ones that really built these structures of that time, you know. It's
That's the one. Of course, this is Vienna, Austria, right? And it's in a massive star. The whole city is a star. But, you know, they just go in and they fill them over, and and that's the next question is, why do they spend so much time demolishing this stuff? You know, I mean, but that's also, you know, with these flooded buildings that we see that have, you know, levels underground, and that it sort of, you know, goes along with the story, right? These were found. These were people after some kind of cataclysm trying to, you know, get their life back together. They found these cities, and so they just kind of moved in and used what they could. You know, some of them were dug out a little bit to get down to doors if it was easy, but a lot of it was just, you know, left because they didn't have the technology to do it. That's what, you know. So those maps, literally, like Burneye said, any old world city, you know, especially Europe and that, because they're easier to find, they all look the same. They're all stars, all starport cities.
Do you have one of like Shanghai or something? That's a really good one, or Beijing, one of the Chinese ones, just to show, like, you know, we've seen like New York, we've seen all of Europe, and then just to prove like it's identical on this other side. And it's like, we're trying to be told that there was no contact, no global like interaction, trades, or anything like previous these times. Yet they're trying to tell us that simultaneously everybody that lived for the hundreds of years before that time just decided to build these like extravagant, over ridiculous infrastructures and earthworks and terraforms and civilization. Like, it's so ridiculous, and that it's everywhere.
It is, and I'm just looking for a quick pick because my hard drive, my portable hard drive, may have got wiped. I seem to have lost everything. But here's a picture. Let me just share this of Shanghai. And the other thing about, you know, Asia is we get these, you know, obviously the Hiroshima, right, the bombs, and we see these pictures, but then we get these pictures of US cities, you know, like Richmond and these places back in the 1860s that apparently went through the Civil War and then they burnt to the ground, and they look exactly the same as the pictures we get of Shanghai. So it's, you know, there's just so many questions. But look at this. So this is, can I make that bigger? Oops, maybe not. So this is Shanghai, and look at these buildings, big dome, right? These are the same, like big columns, a Romanesque building here, tram systems. All the old world cities had tram systems. So it's literally the same thing. We just see the same thing, you know, over and over again. But there is an old map of Shanghai, but it's not going to let me. I don't have it at the moment, so I'll stop that. I do have other pics. So this is the thing. The old world, you know, that they tell us, you know, that there's this story that we started off low and that we slowly built up our technology, and now we're the epitome. You know, we're the best and smartest, and rah rah rah, and on top of that, we're all slaves. Woohoo! You know, what a mountain to climb. But when you look into history, you know, they were more advanced. You know, the old world looks like it was built for the benefit of the people, where clearly the world we're living in is not, right? We've been taken over by, you know, we all know it, right? Corporations and all this kind of stuff. Can I see the chat? Oh, I didn't know that. So I think I've got some more.
Exactly, Campbell. Like, and for my alchemy background, I started reading all of these alchemical writings and text translations from the 1600s, 1500s, and you start to realize and like get a sense of the conscious mindset of society at that time. And they all speak as fact that the ancients were much more advanced than them. That, you know, these pyramid cultures were highly advanced from them, and they're just trying to like recover this knowledge, and like they're in awe of the ancients that built everything else. And then when you take that into your own conscious self and export the YOLO, you only live once, this is the best we've ever been, the best we ever will be sort of mentality, and you start seeing these things, you're able to then be like, understand them better and start taking them apart and being like, hey, that's a capacitor. Hey, that's a fractal wave waveguide antenna generator. You know, like this is actual technology on the highest levels. And then the geopolymers, the different semiconductors, the nanotechnology, there's just so much to it. And we're just finally starting to really understand what's been left over from the ancients. And that, sure, lots of things maybe in those times they tried to imitate, like rebuild copies in awe of those grand big architectures of this global past and stuff, and that you know, just in tribute to it. And maybe they didn't have the technology, or maybe some of them did have it functioning for whatever they used to be doing with this, like all the antennas, the different, like it's just limitless possibilities.
Ridiculous. This is Asia, so you can see it's you know, more stylized, but it's the same, you know, kind of set out. They got their, you know, big antenna in the middle, and you can see there's wires and things hanging off this. You know, it's all, but of course, you know, again, it's all, you know, it's always religion, right? It's always, you know, for the glory of God and all this kind of stuff, which again, you know, what is God, right? Is God the energy that, you know, creates and animates all life? You know, is that what they were going in to receive?
Energy too, Campbell, right? Like if when these things were functioning and fully had all the connectors, the pieces of metal and everything in it, then was it generating like these glowing lights or the hues or like the power of God, the glory of God? Was it lighting your homes? Like was God lighting your actual home by making the plasma within like a tube or whatever lighting up, you know, like with the magic, the God or the magic of God, the energy of God, right? And it's easily, then that's how you controlled, and that's how you were in awe of the ancients that knew how to control the magic of God or the power of God. And easily that's manipulated by it. And then this reset of YOLO, oh no, we're the best ever, don't look at that, don't think of that, no, nothing of that, don't try to understand any of it, don't realize how much more advanced not only that we used to be, but that we can also again be today and in the future.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, and we get stuff like, I mean, India's full of stuff, but you know, we get stuff like this. I mean, what, you know, what's, you know, we just told it's decoration, but that clearly looks like some kind of, I mean, what does that look like? Burneye, a plasma cutter or some kind of spark gap generator?
Fractal capacitor, or like definite that has waveguide antenna like generating in it, and going down to the focal point and those fractal angles going in, and you're seeing these repeating layers of dark and light, probably of a type of sandstone, and like an insulator, and then a conductor, insulator, conductor, insulator, conductor, which is the base work of these modern day what's the word I'm looking for? Not just capacitor, but
capacitors.
Well, it'll come to me, but another little electronical piece, transformer and transducers. Sorry, that's what it is. And then when you have the connecting wires with, like they were stating that they were covered, layered in gold flake, silver flake, copper, these different sheets, you put that on top of that, that is like a macro processor of these computers that we're using today in the micro. And that's another part of the circuit board Earth. And take a look at the different sites, and that it's a silicon, like resonating things, like megaliths and structures made on these energy grid sites, the ley lines and whatnot, and that it's just mega sized macro processing technologies and grids, just like our microcomputers and smartphones that we're using right now here.
Yeah, we've just gone micro, but they went macro. And this is just a shot. I mean, apart from the fact that they knocked all, you know, the best houses down and left this, I mean, you can see in the this was how it used to look. And you can see half of it's underground, by the way, these funny little windows in the ground. But look what they've ripped off it. And this is what we see everywhere. I mean, that's a red brick building though, but you know, they've ripped off this big front door, all the nice trimmings and everything, and just left it as this ugly building. And they do this all the time. And then of course they leave the buildings to go derelict, and they go, oh, it's too ugly, we'll have to knock it over. Here's an organ, right in front of one of these cymatic windows. And if you've ever been inside a cathedral when one of these organs is playing, you know, they're amazing. And another thing with these organs is we find them, you know, obviously they're in the cathedral, but then you find them in these random buildings where they've got no place at all being in there. But they'll just have an organ in some government building or a library or, you know.
Post office, in your local post office, we have an organ, right?
Wow,
like it's perfectly acoustically built geometrically to that entire post office.
To the post office, right? Yeah. And so this tells us that they found these buildings and they were just designating them as different places. And of course, when you get to places, you know, like England and a lot of European cities, you know, they keep, you know, the old world, they don't do much because they keep that as the European look, right? When you come to Australia, they put tin roofs on everything and verandas, and they give it the Australian look. You know, you go to Tuscany and everything gets covered in orange, you know, and that's the Tuscan look.
The local facade.
The local facade.
Reset founders, those robber baron founders that then founded the facade. And
Freemasonry,
right? Yeah,
they like their free buildings.
His story is not my mystery.
Yes, his story. It's not our story. And this is St. Louis, I believe, what was it? St. Louis, 1880s, I think 82. And look at the look at the lights. I mean, this is literally, you know, within 10 years of them, you know, sort of sorting out electricity and the light bulb and that. And we have these cities just completely decked out. Now, where did all the electricians come from?
Right,
to
like the rate of it. How did it just get invented in like a world where you're traveling by steam train and horse and buggy still, you know, that all of a sudden within years you have all these trained people all over, and that these were at the world fairs. And what really fascinated me about the world's fairs is like their story that they were claimed of just being like made of like paper mache buildings sort of thing. And then the ones where there's actually still leftovers, like in California from one of the world's fairs, it's all actual giant marble freaking building statues and stuff left over. And like the canals, like, oh, okay, so you're gonna tell me that you're gonna just paper mache wood over these canals, fake giant palaces, but then do all the terraforming for the canals and all the water and that intricate, it just doesn't make sense. And then the photos of them, there's always, just like how, you know, you have like your Chinatown, your little Italy town, like your local areas in your big metropolitan cities today, or like the embassies or whatnot. You go into these world fairs and there's these same sort of things that like are of either like old Greek, old Roman, or like the Tartarian, or like the different ones. And that it's like, was this just these metropolitan grand places of Tartaria, or this global civilization that the founders have found and conquered and then destroyed, the robber barons, and then that they blew them up after each one, sort of thing, is like a goodbye to the old and the reset into this new. And then they probably got at that same reset time was when they ended the illusion of like the magic of the technology of electricity under like magic or God, or like the power of God or magic, and turned it into technology for everyone. And no longer, because the churches, the palaces, the cathedrals, they look like the most highest tech advanced, but also in every small town that had this atmospheric electricity potential harvesting with their different domes, the dipoles between them, the giant structures that there are and everything. But that's a whole episode all on it. But just that that would have been God, the power of God, bringing in this atmospheric electricity and like using it and distributing it, you know, to some levels. And then from that now, oh no, it's available to everybody. It's electricity, it's power. And now you have to be charged to be charged, you know, to have the power, you have to be charged now. It's no longer free, it's no longer natural, it's no longer coming from God or pure energy, right? Of possible intent and creation. No, now it's this slaved charged system of you know, fire and destruction to create the power too, right? Like that we're destroying the earth. It's no longer in harmony. You're no longer bringing it out. And
well, that's one thing we don't see in the old world is big, you know, power stations as we know them. But then we get pictures like this where they clearly got a lot of power, but you can see all these spires everywhere.
The fact that you just brought that up, that there's no big ones, and it's documented Edison and the DC, they had to have the like little tiny small ones every block sort of thing. So that it's like, oh, well, these were just like the transformer stations from like potentially the cathedrals or like the big buildings that were generating it from their spires, that electrical differential from the top to the bottom. And that also the story of how electricity was discovered is absolute BS of Benjamin Franklin and the kite and whatnot. You find all of these science books that are like written in French and Germanic. They're from like 16, 15, 1400s, and they're titled chapters, atmospheric electricity, like whatever the dialect is. But then you see it where they have like 10 different layered lines going up, measuring above the air, the atmosphere from the ground, and then up along the cathedrals, and then the spires up, and literally the numbers, the measurements of the electrical potential differential, the higher you go up in that spire from the ground, and the charge differential that it produces. And that there's, you know, you use these transformers, these transducers, these capacitors, batteries today that we're using on the micro scale. But when you take a step back and look at like the blueprints, the actual designs and the materials that these fascinating wonders that we do not build like today anymore, that they're the exact same designs on a much larger, more advanced style than we ever anticipated. And it's all about water. And was it, you know, the water of life, that the healing, the energy, the mana, the charging it. And I will let you cover that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fountain. This is a fountain. I mean, and these things were everywhere. And look, just dirt roads. They got their pots to get their water, but look, this is clearly, you know, high tech, right? And this is the thing, like Bernie was talking about the World's Fairs, and the story is that they built them out of paper mache. You know, literally, that's what they say, because they were temporary, then they could knock them all down. But we still have buildings standing today that are clearly not paper mache. You know, some of them clearly were, and they knocked them over. But even with all their stories trying to explain away, they never explain who built all the canals and who did all the plumbing for the fountains. Because these fountains were shooting, you know, water 20, 30 feet in the air. It was all pressurized. It's not easy to do.
Just and a little context, I think this is a picture of, I think, like
Penn
New York
Station.
or something. Yeah, Penn Station. So just this one might have been made by the people of that time, but look at how there's no like glass windows. The architecture is so much less, how bare it is, but it's still the same size of those massive, like giant palaces that supposedly were made of paper mache of the World's Fairs, yet the pictures of them, it looks like actual palaces. And this picture right here, this building looks like absolute junk compared to them. And it's just how lit up they were with both natural as well as electrical power and light in those, and water, and just how is it paper mache and wood, yet you have these stone fountains going through all of them, producing massive like fountains displays both inside and outside of these supposed paper mache buildings, yet still no toilets. Like it just like who was the one that's like, hey, okay, we're gonna put in these underground pipes for these fake buildings that we're gonna end up tearing down, but we're gonna have to build all these bays, these canals, these waterways, and then underneath them, we're gonna have to, you know, get the metals, the amount of forges, the forges for the metal for the pipes, or what, like the stonework, whether it was those, whatever it was used to make all of the aqua, oh, what's the exact hydraulics of those fountains and waterways and terraform. Like it's just the engineering. It's just such a joke. And it's like, but no, toilets out of the question. And yeah,
and just kitchens, they don't seem to, yeah, all the buildings don't seem to have had plumbing in the buildings for, you know, for kitchens, for water, for sewage. But yeah, you walk outside and there's a massive fountain out there. It's like, what's going on here? I mean, look at the size of some of these cathedrals. I mean, these are people. I mean, you know, the time dates we're given of these being built, it just doesn't make sense from the skill level, but also why make it so big? Why make it so hard for yourself? Why use, you know, literally 20 times the materials that you need? You know, why try and work up, you know, 100 foot off the ground when you don't need it? Just doesn't.
At a time with no supposed electricity or power, and you're using your own labor, horse and cart, and no, sorry, no.
Yeah, horse and cart. And this is the other thing we see, they're all dirt roads, you know, so they build these buildings, but, you know, they don't even pave a road so that they can get all their materials in. They're going to drag these carts through these dirt roads, apparently, you know, to bring all the materials to build a building like this. But I mean, and look what's in the background here. Look at this. You see that? I think that's a fountain. And again, that just looks like a cathedral spire, which is another, you know, we just get these repeating patterns. I mean, look at this. Like, seriously.
Like, so you can't even pave your roads, so it's going to be harder, more injuries on your horses, like the more breakdowns on your wooden wheels, like just, you know, absolute disaster of your daily commute, daily lives. You know, you're going to not focus on that. Instead, you're going to build useless towers or like fountains or obelisks instead, you know, of you saving your daily workload exponentially and your horses and like your profit and your energy, you know, like it's the stupidest, most illogical BS. Like the more you think about it and look at it.
Yeah, well, there's a channel, Whistling Diesel, on YouTube, and he's got he does all these things with cars, and he actually got wooden cartwheels made and put them on his four-wheel drive and went for a drive, and they lasted about 20 meters, and then they just snapped right? Under the weight.
He's an amazing like redneck mechanic that like just absolutely kills it on the wild side, but like it, you know, there's real science and stuff coming out of it too. But like it's prime examples of just how impractical so many of these claims are. And yeah, he's an Amish mechanic YouTuber, like just wild guy. If you haven't seen the Diesel,
he's done some cool stuff. But I mean, so that's it. I mean, even my background here, I mean, this is a library, right? I mean, they don't build them like they used to. Everything in the old world was just ornate, just covered, and we're just told it was just all for the glory of God. But then you go into a bank and it's the same. You go into a mental asylum. I mean, those things were the biggest buildings, you know, in every, you know, town, city of the sort of late 1800s, 1900s, and with all these amazing gardens, and they're called, you know, lunatic asylums, but they look exactly like what they call a palace, you know.
Right. The prisons and the
prisons are all castles.
Well, you're going to make them identical to your castles, your government structures, your holy sites, and like no, they were all of these founded buildings that had a facade put onto them, and they were used for, you know, either the reset and reprogramming of that time, or given to the robber baron elites to do what they want of it, and then like this one final show and then disassembly to our modern practicality and usage. And I'll show here, when you're done with the photos that you have, Campbell, a clip of our Great Wall of Tartaria episode.
You've got a clip, yeah?
Yeah, I've got it loaded here.
You got one? Yep, I'm done. Yeah, I've been hunting for photos. I found a few this morning, but I've lost 45 gigs.
Man, that's the worst. I know you're paid right now. I gotta get one of, I actually have a couple of saved hard drive removable external.
That's what I got.
That I just need to re-hook up again, and it should have some good things, right? That's the worst when they do die. That's like, I think I have some gems hidden I got to go through.
So hopefully I can recover it anyway. But yeah, if you want to roll that, roll the film. But so basically what it looks like when we look into history is we read, you know, the story, right? The narrative. And then we go out and we look at these cities and towns and old maps and, you know, old books and that, and it's a completely different story. What they tell us just doesn't make sense. So clearly they're hiding, you know, our story, right? And they're turning into his story, like, and Napoleon. Well, if it was Napoleon.
Right? Okay, well, I am so confused. Like, I took like a little bit of history in post-secondary, and it's like there was some like 10, 13, maybe is like 7 or 8, but like a whole ton of Napoleons that like, it's like,
apparently someone called Napoleon said it, but what they say, history is a set of lives agreed upon. And that's true, you know, because we know, right? History is written by the winners. So if there's a war, or, you know, someone goes and conquers a country, they're not going to tell you the truth about the people that they conquered, and they're also not going to tell you the truth about what they did, right? Because what they do is not ethical. We know this, so we don't get so we're starting from the back foot anyway. But then they've literally gone and they've tried to hide the past, because, you know, we lived in a world where everyone, you know, was peaceful. We had free energy, we had abundance, we had all this stuff, and when you have that, you can't be ruled. Right? Not if you have, you know, an abundance of food and you have land and house and community, no one can talk you into going and getting a job and working 40 hours a week. Right? You can't do it. So this is why they hide that, so that and they tell us this story that we're now the best we've ever been, right? So that we don't think, well, hang on, you know, we're being scammed here, right? We actually sorted this out a couple of 100 years ago, or a couple of thousand.
YOLO.
And you came and stuffed it all up. And so this is it. You know, the remnants are everywhere. Just go and have a look in your local town and city. You'll see these buildings. You'll see the mud flooded windows that go into the ground. You know, there's forts everywhere. There's ruins everywhere. And the more we look in, the more we're starting to find, and we're starting to put this whole picture together.
Actually, you know, before I roll a clip, I need you to find and pull up at least a couple of maps of both like the Tartarian area as well, so like we can give some.
I don't think I did maps, did I?
There's a one of the CIA's first notes or like statements or whatnot when it was officially brought into service from like the War Department or whatever the heck it was.
Oh yes, I didn't get
World War II, was claiming about Tartaria and how the Soviet Union was suppressing and hiding the history of Tartaria, and that Campbell will show here now. We'll try to show that literally this area that we were told was unexplored, uninhabited, was nothing, just the Siberia and like the Orient, nothing. But in fact, it's actually labeled as Tartaria, and that the further back you go in maps, the bigger Tartaria was, and that there's all these lost cities and stuff mapped out in these areas that some of them, most of it's not even inhabited today. But when you go in and check it out on Google Earth, these same spots on these ancient maps, that there's these little castles, townships, settlements, you check it out on Google Earth, and sure enough, boom, there's a buried star fort with some ruins or cathedral, and you know, like, and these dried up it's so weird because it's also in the Sahara from that time too. There's these same castles, and then all throughout like the Siberia, Eurasia, and also it goes down and across into North America, South America too, and lots of it, and at one point also the Europe too, right? Grand Tartaria right there. At this point in the map, China is different, Qin it says, but a lot of the time it's Oriental Tartaria or China Tartaria is like
Cathay as well.
yeah.
Here's Tartaria again. I think we just saw that one, didn't we? Tartaria. So what's that? China regular. We got Tartaria up here.
And entire maps of an area of world labeled as like that is a map of Tartaria. Like the map makers of this time, the cartography, the amount of resources like that they claim and the hardships to produce these, and yet, you know, why would they be making it of this Tartaria if it didn't exist and wasn't something substantial, and that it's just been written out of, and that it, also in the what are the books called? The Britannicas, it's the encyclopedias of those times. The Tartaria was an official country with an official empire, with official flags, official, all of these things. And then you see all these labeled cities on these rivers, these different areas throughout here. And like this right here, this map is actually kind of weak overall. Like you can find much more detailed, right? Like that brief one of like the biggest areas. Yeah, that you can find way more in-depth ones with much more labeled onto it, right? Yeah, like
it's not the best to zoom in. I've just had to grab these today because I've kind of lost
exactly
lost most of my stuff.
Sampling, like 5 minutes of Campbell lost everything when his hard drive crashed, and he just Googled it, and this is what we're just Googling Tartaria map. This is what you're going to find. But like as you dive into it, it is a wormhole that will just blow your mind, because the further back in time you find the map, it's absolutely, the city is built as a star city, a star citadel city, and it's usually in an area labeled as Tartaria or a part of Tartaria that's fully mapped, or how much Tartaria truly encases.
Yeah, exactly. So the further back you go, the bigger it was, and then it literally it just shrinks until it disappears. And now they try and say that Tartaria was just a region, right? But
tartar sauce, right?
The we have tartar sauce, you know, tartaric acid.
Or it's an Aryan, right? The Aryan nation wasn't Tartarian. They had to morph it and warp it into Aryan, when in fact it was a Grand Tartarian ancient civilization, not this racist Aryan BS they spread, but the Tartarian. They had to put tar to it. You know, you're just a fish sauce,
right? That add their black goo.
Tar, or you know, you're a racist Aryan.
Yeah, and look at all these cities. Like all these are cities, right? And look at them. There's tons of them. They're everywhere. Of course, always on the water. And like Bernie said, you know, when you get more detailed maps, these cities are everywhere. And you look at maps from the 1500s, and everything is just completely built out. And the Sahara Alaska used to be called
Alaska. Is always like the the first maps that Alaska appears on, it's always Tartary. It states.
Yeah, and it's also just huge in the old maps. You know, Australia is kind of not there. There's just this big landmass. And I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah. So Tartars, yeah, they've wiped out. Yeah, and like Bernie said, the CIA. There's a CIA document that literally says, yes, we wiped out, you know, these people and blah blah blah. Because this was all leading up to the Russian Revolution and that kind of era where they literally were erasing cultures and bringing in the new you know, the new order.
The reset.
Right, the new rule, and they were just taking over everything, installing their kings and queens, and we know that they love to install kings and queens. They don't want to be the kings and queens; they just want to install them, and then you know, these people, though, they just whisper in the ears of the kings and queens, and they have power over them. And this is pretty much what happened. You know, there was a catastrophe. People were sort of thrown around everywhere, didn't know what was going. It was kind of like a big MK Ultra, I guess. And then, you know, the opportunists moved in and pretty much took over everything, disassembled, you know, the old world and turned it into something that they could use against us. And, you know, a couple of 100 years here we find ourselves, and we're finding that we don't even know what the past was. It just doesn't make sense when we look at it from a perspective of what we can see physically. It doesn't match up with all these stories in the books, right? And that's the other thing that we know, right? All these book burnings, you know, we all know that the Library of Alexandria, but it went through, we all know, you know, World War II, they were doing it. They've been doing it the whole time. And they're just
what's burned
destroying
in
the
the
information.
Vatican Library, and why is it public and, like, you know, for everybody to interpret, see, and try to understand? And also, why aren't there these like AI intelligence algorithms, right? Why haven't they built these linguistical ones to decipher all of these ancient pictographic languages, these Proto-Sumerian, these Proto-Sanskrit, the Proto-Greek, Hebrew, Aramaic, like the Babylonian, all of these Egyptian as well. Like the algorithms, if they program them, put them effort into, could instantly either verify or deny every single like runestone carving, like Crespi tablet, the Burroughs caves, the Idaho or Illinois caves. Another episode that me and Campbell did was called America Egypt, and we show a video of Harry Hubbard's Illinois cave and all of his discoveries, and it's almost identical to a lot of the stuff found in both the Burroughs caves as well as Father Crespi's collections in Golden Libraries. And I've gotten in touch with Harry Hubbard, and we're going to be doing an actual interview with him live coming up in a part 2.
Nice. And even back to the Book of Mormon, that was, you know, gold tablets as well. You know, it's this same theme. You know, when you look at it from a you know, helicopter view, right, from a broad perspective, you just see these same themes running through everything. But you know, they say no, these people never met each other. They were completely different. I mean, there's literally a picture, and there's one's from Egypt and one's from Ecuador, and they are the same picture. That, you know, it's basically, you know, what it looks like one of the, you know, the Egyptian sort of pharaoh type people. Same picture, you know, the same stuff found on opposite sides of the world. Supposedly by people that never ever had any contact, and these identical motifs and bits of, you know, art that are just the same. And this is what the buildings were. All these motifs, that was a language. You know, I sort of mentioned that it was encoded with information. People could walk up and read that. So, you know, when you see like a gargoyle or something and it's spitting out water, that's saying don't drink this water. So you could go to any country and you'd know what these buildings did.
This is something we do need to discuss because of all the petroglyphs and stuff that you're finding and whatnot, that in fact, and like some of the Sapphire projects work showing like the different plasma glyphs and stuff too. But when I've now been deciphering and going in deep and researching, looking at this ancient alchemy pictographic language, it's in fact including a lot of those same petroglyphs that you're using, and it's actually this higher dimensional, like frequency energy language of both creation and design. And I highly recommend people check out, it's called like the 3 principle. I'll just grab it actually to give you a much better idea. But if you take an electrical engineering or physics and stuff at all, and chemistry, then when you find the old alchemy, the 3 principles, so you have fire, which is actually plasma, the 4th state of matter that we're only now just starting to understand. Earth, your solid state, your 3rd state. Water, your liquid, your 2nd state. And air, your gas, your 1 molecule, 1st state. And then plus the elements, well, that's the periodic table of elements in their 4 states of matter, and that their pictographic language, they actually have these same petroglyphic shapes. They're the same letters, the same shapes as these alchemy language and the periodic table, and that it actually is just this vector-based or force vector-based language of the interactions of these different materials and elements and the energies of magnetism, electricity, and everything between them, and then the heavenly bodies above that the alchemists labeled as different elements, gold, silver, copper, mercury, all your power metals and your electromagnetism metals. And the sun, that's the gold. They put gold, your highest conductor, as well as that is like your right hand rule for electricity going through. That's your sun, that's your power. That is the right hand rule as the gold. And then, this is a grid, the cross. Well, that's where in your vector graph that the heavenly body, whether it's the force of Mercury or gold or silver being the moon, second most, and then like copper, iron, and that where they are in that grid, and is it waxing or waning? Is the power of it increasing or decreasing in it?
Yeah.
And it's just
we see those symbols.
A whole nother stream in day, but
but just as they're on the top of all the domes, those symbols are everywhere,
right?
And of course the domes are made from things like copper, gold, and silver. So this is sort of the other thing. It all sort of seems to tie in. But I need to run to the toilet quickly. So you want to run that video?
I'll play the clip there.
I'll be back in 1 second.
No worries, brother. So what I was gonna say with the elements, oh my gosh, what the frick was the part of it? Brain fart, the last part of the alchemy. Okay, it is the alchemy, the pictographic language of alchemy itself. And it's the oldest existing written language across human civilizations. You can find it in these Babylonian texts, the Sumerian texts, the Sanskrit texts, like the Vedas, the Assyrians, the Egyptians, all the way up to the modern day Jesuit orders, the Freemasons. They still use the same alchemy language, and that it's a higher dimensional science, mathematic, universal code, that this is a language that pretty much starts or predates essentially the human farming, villaging, or starting of civilization. It's appeared from the very beginning of written civilization everywhere, and that it's continued the exact usage throughout all of history up until this same time, and that it's hidden, it's occulted. And if you don't fully grasp, comprehend, or perceive the significance of what I'm explaining, it's that think of how much just modern day English or American English compared to Canadian English, compared to UK English, compared to Aussie English, compared to Old English, compared to Latin, compared to French, compared to Spanish, Portuguese, Russian, the Slavic, all these different languages, okay? And also, compared to Cantonese or Japanese, Korean, some of the languages still pictographic written languages and spoken languages, but just as well as Hebrew and Aramaic and Arabic, there's that the further back linguistically you go and deeper into these pictographic languages, the symbol languages, the Egyptian, ancient Egyptian, and that a symbol has, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So a symbol language, a picture graphic symbol language is 1,000 times more complex in each letter than the current alphabet and language that we've devolved back down into to today. And that this super highly advanced pictographic written language and also spoken language in the most ancient of times has survived and not changed at all throughout all of human recordings, civilizations, artifacts across time and space on this realm, up until even in your most your up-to-date, just published horror films influenced and written by the pop Hollywood slash power that be slash structure and societies that still use it, including within the churches or organizations or societies within the organization of the larger church or religious structures. Anywho, enough about that little rant on the pictographic languages and how there should be an AI algorithms on these linguistics that would instantly tell you what's real, what's not, and make understandings of all of lost things. Back to the Great Wall of Tartaria that originally Olaf the Sverker, shout out to you, brother, out of Scotland, a Scottish he's an interesting fellow if you find Olaf on YouTube, because he is of Russian parents and descent and fluent speaker and of Russian, but born and raised and living in Scotland. So it's a mix of hard, awesome Scottish accent and Russian English. But he is who has been able to decipher all of these Russian Tartarian sites throughout the Eastern Europe. And this is me and Campbell's working on of it right here. This is the Dnieper River right here. And each one of these is a star fort along the Great Wall of Tartaria.
What, three countries. So that's, I guess that's Russia there. I mean, that's
yeah,
a
we
bit,
just we didn't
that
even
bit
make it all the way through Ukraine. We didn't even make it to the Russian border. We're not even through the Russian border. And we started at the Dnieper River. And we also started at the Dnieper River, and then it goes all the way south and connects to the Black Sea. So we only started in the middle and didn't even get through the first country that this Great Wall goes through.
Wow. All right, so it wasn't here, was it? On the other, this one.
That one right there, yeah, you got it.
So this looks, you can see just from above, very Starfordy looking. When we get down in here, it's now, they've just mined the whole thing out.
And how many years of quarrying is this just to destroy one of these citadels? Not build it, but to destroy it.
Exactly, they've turned Murray into a whole industrial area, running on just destroying it.
Oh, and then zoom out. Remember, next to it, there's the steps on this river and this coastline of the Dnieper here. Look at how straight it is. It's a complete built, ancient, man-made coastline or river line along that. Look at that. That is perfect megalithic structures along this entire coast that is now being quarried out.
And it just looks like man-made steps or something along there, but look how straight it is. And then, down here, look at this, how straight this is. This is to the sea. It's deep in the heart of, what we see as Tartaria on the old maps.
Exactly. On the wall of Tartaria, essentially.
Yeah, it's definitely part of it. And all this is...
This is not a stand mixer. It's
Now you can see that we're not just making it up. Actual full-out starport in the middle of nowhere along a giant wall.
Yep, and here is the giant wall. Again, another massive bastion. One along here. Across here. And there's another star. See, it's been a bit buried. And the wall keeps going. I'm not sure if that's
in the middle of nowhere, and they're every couple kilometers along this wall across two countries, from the Black Sea, the belly of Eurasia, to the North Tartarian Sea, the North Siberian Arctic Ocean.
And it looks like it keeps going. You can see another bastion there. And again, like these random things that you see just in the middle of fields, like this round bit here.
And it showed that it was excavated out, and that it was like they were taking it apart, and it was now a giant, massive, like a stone mine, or what's the right word?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this, I don't know if they've put this water in, but you can see the wall goes straight through.
Quarried right out. Yeah, like, right? And more of the bastions along the wall.
Yeah. So it looks like this is the wall here.
Just keeps going over and over.
Okay, we lost it. And fort. Oh, okay, there's another star. Look at that. There's
Another perfect star right there, still in. Yeah, there's the wall above it. Okay, above the town. There we go.
There's another one. The wall's coming, star down here. God, it looks like they're destroyed. And you can just see these bastions the whole way along it. Look at this thing, it just keeps going.
It's non-stop. It's literally a wall across the continent that's not described or mentioned anywhere in history. Yet is literally the division of the active war zone today, pretty much.
Yeah. So it looks like it goes this way. Yeah, there's another big bastion. Another one. Another one there. And here we just huge, just keeps going. Another bastion. Now here. Now what do we think? This way, there we go, there's a star.
Another star.
Here, another star.
Another star.
Bastions. You can see it there again. And this one, look, you can see it underneath the field. You kind of see that it goes across there. Oops. And then it pops out on the other side.
That's another star. Another grand star right there. By the Dnieper there.
Hey, all right. Are we back?
Yes, we are back. So I'm going to pause it right there. And hopefully people were able to see there that that's the exact same wall, exact same geometry, like probably inch for inch of the design and what was like Wall Street, the wall that was on Wall Street.
Yeah.
Is Amsterdam, the wall that is absolutely every single one of these Starfort cities. And that you can go in both check out our original Great Wall of Tartaria 2-hour stream on Autodidactic's channel, as well as Olaf the Svirker on his YouTube channel. He's got a couple even more in-depth videos of both going through from the Black Sea and Crimea area of Ukraine up the Dnieper, and then from the Dnieper there across all the way east, northeast through all of Ukraine. And then he's got a second episode that he then continues it. And anybody can do this through Google Earth. And what the last part that I was sharing there, that was all of those markers Campbell put in. Me and Campbell spent several hours just watching Olaf's video and then going in through our own Google Earth and pinning each one of the Starfort reference points. That this wall literally goes from the Black Sea, which is, you know, the oh my goodness, connected right by like Turkey, Mediterranean. It's basically right by the Mediterranean there, all the way up across all of Eurasia, northeastern Eurasia, essentially, and into the what's now the Russian Arctic Ocean, but in the ancient maps that we're showing, I even showed you, it's the actual Sea of Tartaria, or what's always in Latin, something, yeah, but Sea of Tartaria.
Yeah, Tartaria Septimine or whatever they call it. But yeah. And that's the thing, we've marked a lot of them up in Russia as well. So we've got these 2 points and we've just got to go through the middle basically. But you can see these things, they're just everywhere, you know. It's like we said, that you find these stars and canals and old cities in Russia, and you find them in Poland, but then you find them in Scotland, and then you find them in Libya, and then you find them in Australia, and then you find them in the US and Canada. It's all the same stuff, but the story they give us, you know.
There's one identical of these battery starforts, that big 4-pedaled one, that main one that and I do encourage people to go check out our Great Wall of Tartaria episodes, because there's literally hundreds of these, one every kilometer or two, buried across the thousands of kilometer wall that it is. It's exponentially bigger than the Great Wall of China. There's no history of it, no construction date of it. And literally it's those same wall bastions that Wall Street itself is the shape of it, former, and the foundation. And every kilometer or two, one of those starforts either buried or still semi-existing, and half of them don't even have official construction date stories or origins. They're in like farmers' fields, all sorts of stuff. And you can take like the LiDAR imaging to it, and you'll always find that there's like these mass substructures underneath and caves within most of them, and all sorts of like buried world stuff. Just not.
It's like the stuff in that we just looked at, none of that has any story at all. There's no explanation at all for it. And there's a wall that's...
It's not his story. It's still the mystery to make our own mystery. Don't
my story.
Look into the Tartarian.
Indeed. And there's a wall in India that I think is bigger or about the same size as the Great Wall of China. They've also got a Sphinx. And Quebec's still got the wall there. It's like in the city, there's a wall around Quebec. It's Quebec, isn't it? The one that we looked at the other day. I haven't got the right city.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Quebec City, and then it also goes.
And that's got a massive star built into the wall.
Entire area there. Yeah, it's still Citadel Star City areas, and these canals and all of it. It's crazy.
Just exactly what they tell us was all through Europe. But I mean, it's a fully, like, Quebec's just a full old world city, you know. It's got stars and castles and everything in it, and again, you know, it's a new country.
I've been lucky enough to go to Montreal 5 times so far in my life. Back when I was younger, I had a cheap free flight thingy, but always astounded me getting a ride in from the airport and then into like the downtown island. You pass all of the cathedrals, and there's like hundreds of them, and they're towering everywhere in like this built out old city on this island, which is probably all reclaimed artificial island, like more Starfort, like, you know, looking back into it. And it's been there all the time. We just haven't noticed it. And like, that's what I noticed in Melbourne, like the juxtaposition of these old world massive cathedrals, and they're just surrounded by these, you know, black or mirror boxes. You know, it's like, it gives you that real sense of, you know, like, you know, the black box, right, just coming in and trying to eat the old world. It's because they're so big and tall and looming down. And this is what's going on. You know, they can't recreate that stuff, so they're trying to rebuild, you know, civilization, or, you know, the cult of their culture into something that's theirs, because they literally want to be gods. That's what this is all about. They want to be gods on earth.
And so they can't, they need to build their own creation and get us to believe it's reality. And then, hey presto, they think that they're our gods. So
manifest, take your sovereignty back, right? Be your own builder, manifest your own reality, be your own creator and creator for good and builder. And so I'm gonna, Rex gonna come back and join us here shortly, but I was gonna play a couple-minute clip of our Is North America Egypt clip quickly before then, if that's all right. And this is the Harry Hubbard collection, Rex. If you've not heard of him before, the Illinois Caves, and it's almost identical to like the Father Crespi collection, or also the, what was it, the Inca stones or something? Ica stones, yeah, the Ica stones. And then I think it's different than the Burroughs Cave. It's not, or there's just so
there's
many
other, there's other reports of these things being found, in Europe and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Europe, underneath Egypt, even like through Asia. They're just it's everywhere.
Yeah, and of course it's all false, right? Because that's what people would do. They'd spend years like making these things, researching to make sure that there was some kind of link. And somehow they, some of these, they do them and they end up as a decipherable thing, but it's just, it's just a fault, it's just a scam. And of course, none of them can ever make any money off it. Right. And then all these books they tell us are false, like, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just write it as a fiction and make money off it? Why would you try and say, no, it's true, it's true, it's true, and be made to look like a fool? This whole story of, people produce these fake things. It's the dumbest thing. When you really start to think about it, it's dumb. Doesn't
right?
Make sense.
And so, but my favorite part, and why I was stressing so much about that linguistical AI algorithms and stuff, is that and Rex, this is another crucial part. If in the future, when we have Harry Hubbard on, if you can, he's, I think, done some work with Scott Wolter, but maybe also have Scott back, because I believe Harry said that Scott has worked on some of these. And it's that the fact that the claims that the forgers themselves, these shisty people with no morals sort of thing, yet are able to somehow pick up, learn these lost languages, write these false fake stories so accurately and like in the absolute perfect grammar of the supposed minute time era that they're claimed to be forged from, that lots of times, like, this is the second or first like historical case of that exact time frames written record of it, sort of thing. That it's like,
you hear it all the time, like they deciphered it and then they found out that it was wrong. Well, if it was wrong, how did you decipher it? If it's made up, that you don't decipher just random letters put together or random shapes. And another thing to keep in mind is all these shapes, right? I mean, we're heading back there. I mean, look at your computer screen, right? What's all over that? These little shapes, little icons. And those little icons mean a lot more than just, like a blue square with an F. It doesn't just mean an F in a blue square. It means all this stuff, right? All this information is related to that. And that's what these old symbolic languages were. They had so much information encoded in them. And of course, that's something that, everyone that we hear about who's deciphering them, they don't really go into that. They try and read them as we read our alphabet, like their letters and things. And so we don't even really have the true, meanings of these things yet.
Right.
But I mean, same stuff, right?
And like, look at this. This is like ancient, like runic and like ancient Greek, ancient Slavic. Like, it's all of these languages, like each carving, each one of them, like whether it's Crespi, Burroughs, this Illinois, or anywhere else, it's that there's usually a collection that represents like one of ancient Greek, a few like runic, a few Sumerian, like a multitude of each of these extinct languages in these different like collections. So it's like, how did all of these separate, different supposed forgers, each of them all learn 10 lost languages all on their own to then be able to act. Like, it's just the complexity and ridiculousness of these claims.
Well, I mean, that's another good point, right? The truth is simple. So, I mean, imagine this as an alternate scenario, right? That you've got this civilization that spans the world. They have one language, and of course, we're told, in some books that language is confounded, right? So they've all got the same symbols, the same architecture, all connected to the same grid, and then there's a catastrophe, right? And the grid gets broken, and they all lose contact with each other. And so over a couple of generations, you end up with these people that are all separated, but they all have the same history, right? The same buildings, the same languages, the same symbols and logos and motifs, because that's what we see, right? But they're trying to say, no, that's not the story. This was all just random, that they just randomly all came up with the same stuff at the same time. So, I mean, what makes more sense to you? I mean, this is the thing. Look, with all their stories, they're just so convoluted, but they have to be to confuse us. So in the end, you just go, oh, well, the experts say this,
Right? Like, why? And half of them being on like these gold tablets and like silver, but lots of them are on gold. And it's like, if people are forging like these, there's going to be desperate and broke. They're not going to have the resources to like go acquire this mass amount of gold and then smelt it down into these forgeries,
ingots and stuff,
extinct languages that they've learned to be able to write these in-depth stories in extinct dialects that nobody except for oh my, it's just.
And even these carvings on the rock, a lot of this rock is dolerite.
Right, yeah, and
which is extremely hard.
Yeah, and same with like the granites, all sorts, right? Like
it's not like they, we don't find these on sandstone, right? And on the easy stuff, it's like, and that's the other thing about the old world. The way we look at it, it looks like they do everything the hardest way possible, right? But I mean, obviously to them,
it was all manual labor with
exactly. From our point of view. Obviously to them it would be easy because that's the way that people work, right? You don't do things that are hard. You don't make buildings that are too big.
Aztec Mayan kind of like crossover, right?
That's a good one, yeah, because it's got like the Mayan sort of necklace or
right? That's not like in
a Roman nose.
like this pre-cataclysm civilization, like was this from the time of Atlantis's, and then there was like the remnants afterwards, that there could have been this grand Atlantean Lemurian before the Younger Dryas collapse.
Bernie, you got the Muppet in the background again.
Oh, you've turned into Kermit the Frog. Oh no. I'll talk.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there could definitely be a pre, I mean, no doubt there was, but I think we're in what do they say, the 4th or the 7th Kali Yuga? Is that right? The 7th world? So that there's been,
like depending on, right? There's many of
them. So, I mean, I'd say that there was that as well, like a flood type scenario where people were dispersed and they sort of went across and found these civilizations that had been, dispersed earlier. And to them, they look like the gods because they still had the technology, right? Which is, the power of God.
Exactly.
Here's some more runes. That's what we're about. But the thing about this, this sort of topic of research is, it's fun, right? Like, in this community, as far as, like research or, whatever, truthers, conspiracy theorists, whatever label you want to put on it, most of it's so, bad. Now, there's all these dark holes to go down and, oh my God, they're doing this to us and they're doing this and look how long they've been doing this and look what they do. And it's not very uplifting. But with this topic, we're looking at what used to be. So we're also looking at what could be again, right? It's inspiring because it makes people want to, bring that back, right? Want to become the kind of people that you need to be to have that kind of society, which is the biggest thing. We need to, for this new world that everyone, wants, we actually need to become the right kind of people to one, find it, but two, to actually stay in that frequency, you know, and so that's what this topic does. It's wonder, right? We see all these amazing things, and it gets your imagination going, and you wonder, and it's like that, you know, we can do that again, right? We look how, you know, look what we did, look how smart we were. And it's just so much more fun, right? Than looking at, you know, oh my God, look what they're doing. Look what they're doing in the tunnels. Look what they're doing with the young people. Look at the, you know, banking. Look at this. Look at this. You know, instead, we're trying to put our focus on, look how amazing all this stuff was. Now let's use it to go forward, right? How do we use this information to make the world, you know, more like that, but, you know, or better, right? So it's really used as a leap from the old world to the new world. It really is. Because so much research is dragging that old world with us as we try and go forward, right? We're trying to go forward, but everything's, you know, so expensive in petrol. Trying to go forward, but what are they doing to the kids and that? And, you know, that's all, you know, bad stuff, obviously. But, you know, we know that whatever you focus on grows. So if we start focusing on what we want and building a better world, then that all that crap that we don't want will fall away. They'll lose their power. They'll lose, you know, their all this kind of stuff. So, you know, that's my little spiel. Research Tartaria, Autodidactic channel, and many others. And what's yours? Crypto Alchemist now? You're on about your 50th channel because they keep getting axed.
No, Burneye, the mind's third eye science guy. Keyword just YouTube search BURNEYE, and that will come up with lots of my old streams on both Leak Project as well as Autodidactic 1 and 2 channels from my previous before they deleted Crypto Alchemist and Bernard Conkin channels, and my new Burneye third YouTube channel. And this one here, most recent stream that we did.
Hey, Campbell, can you hear the toad again?
No, it sounds right to me.
Because I can sure hear the toad,
okay,
man.
I'm gonna just quickly say it.
What did you do different?
I'm sharing.
It seems to be when you share your screen.
Yeah, there. Is it better now? It stopped sharing?
No, it's not. Every time you talk, it does it. It doesn't do it when Campbell's talking. It only does it when you talk.
He is Canadian. Maybe it's just his accent.
Nice.
All right. Well, you go and fix something, Bernie. What were you talking about? So he was just showing, what were you showing? Moscow. Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing. If you go onto Google Earth today, you'll see all these cities, and they've all got the same, when you really start to look at them, they've all got the same features. They've all got the canals. They've all got the big cathedrals. They also have like these islands in them. And it's just this, and then of course you'll find the stars and the star forts, and it's still there. Like we can still find all this stuff. So I do encourage you to, you know, get out there and have a look, and more than that, have a look what's in your own backyard, right? What's in your town and city, ruins, but also, you know, get off the beaten track, because, you know, we've got so many gatekeepers, right? We have, you know, obviously, you know, the books and the libraries and the archaeologists, you know, and the ones that we think of, but what about national parks, right? And park rangers? And because even if you're allowed in the national park, they always give you one little path, right, to follow. And pretty much 100% of people will stay on that path. But we have this saying, right? Get off the beaten path. So if you get off and have a look, you'll be amazed. There's walls and stuff just sticking out just in the middle of nowhere, and, you know, pillars and all this stuff, and creeks that have all these, you know, little levees and things in them. And there's no explanation for any of it. It's just in the middle of nowhere. So get out and have a look. And this we have Medicine Hat Indian Man. Okay, talk, Bernie. Do you want to talk? Let's see. No, he's muted himself.
I got the toad, so I'm afraid.
You got the toad still? All right, I'll talk.
So yeah, just did wrapping up. This is another one with the geoglyphs and Faram, and that I'm going to check out by my do a meetup in Alberta and actually go down with a group of people to explore these Medicine Hat Badland guardians and the geoglyphs there. and it's only within 100 kilometers from where I live in Calgary, Alberta. They also have those big stone balls there, supposedly. So take a drone up, try to find some balls, try to find some megalithic geoglyphs, and try to get some confirmation from above aerial footage of these fantastic earthworks and indigenous faces.
Dude. All right. Is his speech a bit better there, Rex? No, Rex is gone. And this is not an ear pod. That's actually a road.
I'm here and it's better.
Oh, you're there. Awesome. So this is an aerial shot. This is like a mountain range kind of thing, right? But it's an aerial shot, and you can see clearly that this face. And then there was another one that looks like a Viking. And these things, these shot towers and towers that are everywhere, you know, what are they all? So there's just so many questions. And I mean, we've just sort of touched on, you know, it's a bit of an entry point, but there's so many directions that this topic goes in. You know, it goes out into free energy, into, you know, transport, like airships and trams and train lines and excuse me, geoglyphs, all these hidden, you know, tablets that they find, like lower layers, you know, tunnels, underground levels. It's really just looking at the whole, you know, world that we've been told and looking at it differently and finding out that it's different. You're allowed to talk now, Burneye. Apparently Kermit has left the building.
Nice. I guess we've been going 2.5 hours now, or close to. Probably a good time to wrap things up. Rex, did you have any last questions or anything about
No, but I was super impressed, and I would like to do this again. And I got to say, both you guys have been awesome, so I really appreciate it. The toad was annoying, but he just jumped in there a few times, so no big deal. And I'm looking forward to studying this more. This is one of the few topics that, when it comes to ancient civilizations, that I haven't really studied that much. And I think you're bringing some incredible information to the table, and I'm looking forward to next time. So thank you both. And
awesome. Thank you.
Let's do this again. Yeah.
Definitely. And next time, maybe we can, you know, sort of pick a more specific topic and go down that road, because it just tends to be a lot if we don't do that. It's like a bit of a brain splat. But thank you for having us, Rex. And yes, thank you everyone in chat.
Awesome. This is so cool. Well, thank you everybody for being here with us. Make sure to subscribe to Burneye's and Campbell's YouTube channels and Autodidactic.
You got it. Autodidactic means self-educated, so it's the perfect thing. He's got Autodidactic 1 and 2, as well as Spiral Up, which is his third channel, you know, for the emotional consciousness uplifting.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
And Burneye, the Mad Alchemist, your new YouTube channel is called what?
Burneye, Mind's Third Eye, Science Guy, or just YouTube search Burneye, and literally hundreds of my videos will show up, whether they're on Rex's, on Campbell's, as well as some on Alien Scientist, plus my new channel also will show up. So I kind of like gamed the system by pre-naming everything and then creating the channel afterwards. So censor me all you want. I'm still there.
Be the change you want to see, everybody. Cheers.
Thank you.